Hello everybody, welcome to our podcast, Mindset Matters. Today we are going to be sharing a few articles and we have some interviews from real life teachers as well. So first up we have Lexi, who's going to be sharing an article with us.
So there are nearly 4 in 10 U.S. high school students that reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness in the past year. It seems like female students have higher rates of poor mental health than male students. And these things all came from if you didn't get 8+ hours of sleep, or having an adult in the household who always tries to meet basic needs, and a higher parental monitoring. If you didn't have any of that in your household, you had a higher chance of having mental health issues.
Wow, that's crazy. Because I feel like that's a really common thing that we see in schools too. Students are not getting enough sleep. There are a lot of students who have only one parent living with them, and so that's crazy how much those things affect mental health.
Sleep as well, getting 8 hours. I used to be an educational aide and I'd have students falling asleep during class. I'd be like, what's going on? They're like, oh, I was taking care of my baby sister all night.
Thank you, Lexi, and thank you, Jen, for sharing that story as well. Next, we're going to have Tyler sharing an article that he read.
Social and emotional learning is the process of developing social and emotional skills to thrive personally and academically and contribute to a more caring, just world. Social and emotional learning allows students to acquire and apply the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes necessary to develop healthy identities, manage their emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. Currently, only 29 out of 50 states enforce social and emotional learning in their public schooling systems, one of those including Ohio. The reason that some states do not require social and emotional learning in their public classrooms are because of their political beliefs, their educational philosophies, or their perceived values. They see beneficial results in their schooling system, such as 62% reduction in violence, 51% fewer bullying incidents, 73% shrinkage in suspensions, and 85% fewer disciplinary referrals.
That's honestly crazy that it's only 29 out of 50. That's insane.
What's even crazier is that some of the states aren't allowing it because of political beliefs. I don't think any of this is political at all, especially because this is focusing on emotional impact and building understanding around the world.
Thank you, Tyler, for sharing about social and emotional well-being, and thank you, Emma, so much for sharing that interesting insight as well. Next up, we are going to have Colton sharing an article with us.
A couple of things that I've noticed after reading it was globally, more than 1 billion people live with mental health conditions. And then something else that I saw was the social and environmental factors, including poverty, violence, and environmental deprivation also increases the risk of experiencing mental health conditions. And then just one more thing, which is mental health risk and protective factors can be found at different scales. Local challenges affect individuals, families, and communities, while global threats such as economic downturns, disease outbreaks, humanitarian emergencies, forced displacement, and climate change impact entire populations. Going back to COVID and everything, we all lived through that outbreak, and seeing how everybody comes out of it. Everybody doesn't want to be as social anymore.
I think COVID was a really big impact on why there's a lot of more mental health problems within a lot of populations, especially when it comes to social economic status, because a lot of people lost their jobs, which in turn gave more mental health problems or more or less stability.
And next we have Hannah, who interviewed 2 real life teachers, and we are going to have her sharing those interviews with us.
All right. When was a moment that you had to help a student of yours in a time of extreme distress?
I had a student who is autistic and came into my classroom early, and a student made a comment to her, and she totally reacted from it. To handle the situation, I was very calmly talked to her and removed the other student from the room, and we finally got her calmed down to kind of diffuse the situation. And knowing what stimulated the situation and for future use and things like that, you can utilize that information to help for future things.
So I have this student, and she was just devastated about this friend group that she was part of, basically turning their back on her and not knowing what to do and how to feel and how to deal with it. And I said, hey, your friend group will shift. You're gonna find a new group of friends. Then from there, you're gonna blossom into another group. You're never gonna make everybody happy, but that, you know, things develop and they grow and everything will grow. And that this time in her life, she needs to focus on herself. She really appreciated the sit down and the listening and the heart to heart of, this isn't the end all. You still have a lot going on and things will get better.
Thank you, Hannah, for getting those real life stories. I believe next is Jen, who has an article to share with us.
So mine is about where mental health issues derive from. Academic pressure, strained family relationships, and peer conflicts are among the primary triggers for anxiety and depression. And lack of emotional support within families exacerbate feelings of loneliness and neglect among adolescents. Mental health issues among adolescent students are closely associated with life events and childhood trauma experiences. Adolescence is a critical period for individual psychological development. And mental health status not only affects an individual's academic performance and quality of life, but is closely linked to long-term social adaptability and well-being. Drawing on my own experience, for 6 years, I was an educational aide in the public school system. And so I got to see firsthand these problems that children were bringing to school. One of them, like their dad passed away suddenly, and he couldn't focus academically. So we just had to focus on loving that student, not expecting academic excellence from them, but rather just loving on them because that's what they needed at that time.
Yeah, I feel like that's really prevalent. I feel like we can see that very frequently in how students in their young age, how those big events that happen when they're so young, or like how their parents treat them. I feel like that's a very common theme when we're looking at mental health in children and in schools, and seeing how much those events in their early life affect them in their future.
I feel like that also has like a big impact on like how they do in like high school and middle school, and like if they play sports, that can have a big impact on how they play in those sports.
Yeah.
And next we have Kennedy, who is sharing an article with us.
It's talking about ending silence for students and staff and their families, and how we should spread more awareness and talk about these topics and make it more prevalent for those families and the staff, and have them have updated materials that they may need to support these students and families through tough times.
I feel like that kind of connects to what you were just talking about like the school psychologists not necessarily having all of the resources they need to help out with students.
Awareness is a big one too, because sometimes they'll come out as behavioral issues, and parents and caregivers or even teachers aren't really aware like what these behaviors are, and that awareness about the mental health.
And finally, Emma is going to be sharing an article with us.
Basically what my article was about was the low expectations that are put in place upon students with IEPs, 504s, or just general students with disabilities. Like, they believe that this student has a disability, and we see that they aren't able to achieve certain things because of these pre-stigmatized ideas of what people with disabilities are able to do. Like, you see these videos online of these people mocking people with disabilities in the school system, highlighted the history of low expectations and why they're happening. And this all comes down to what they believe students can achieve and what they cannot achieve, which is an unfair expectation, and it limits opportunities that these students are able to have. These low expectations are placed upon educators, and one-on-one with educators is also very hard for things to happen, especially in the school system. They aren't able to properly accommodate every single student, which contributes to like low test scores, not only with students with disabilities, but just students in general.
I feel like from personal experience, I feel like everyone's been in a place where they've gone somewhere and people aren't expecting them to do very well, or they're immediately like being talked down to or whatever, and that can just make you feel like you can't do it, and that is where you stand. And so students who are being affected by this aren't even aware of it most of the time.
Definitely.
And it's just, they don't realize their potential because no one's showing it to them.
And that is all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in to Mind Matters.